Episode 4 of Ahsoka had some amazing lightsaber battles. We'll be breaking down every slash and strike of 2 of them on today's video. Now, most of the focus is on the Baylan versus Ahsoka fight, and that's also how I've titled this video. So if you're exclusively interested in that, check the timestamps down below. But Fallen Jedi marked the midway point of Ahsoka Season 1, and at the end of last episode, I thought it was obvious we'd be getting the subsequent week would be filled with lightsaber combat. Ahsoka and Sabine being stranded on a planet with a trio of Dark Jedi and an army of HK droids was a guarantee for some top-notch action, but I didn't quite expect it to be on this scale. And honestly, I thought this episode had the best lightsaber combat we've seen in the Disney era of Star Wars. Let's start breaking down all of that and look at each of the matchups. We have 3 different battles happening. Sabine and Shin engage in their second fight. Ahsoka and Marrok have the rematch following their battle on Corellia, which we covered in a prior lightsaber breakdown. And finally, we have the big man Baylan Skoll taking on Ahsoka. First off, let's take a brief look at Ahsoka versus Marrok. I had previously, as I mentioned, broke down their first fight on Corellia, sort of an effort to counter criticisms regarding the pacing and choreography of the duel. This battle started right up with Marrok unsheathing both blades, unlike last time where he went single-bladed for a while. This time, neither of the combatants is stalling for time, and they both want a quick kill. What is Ahsoka doing though? She only ignites one of her lightsabers and maintains a reverse grip position on it. The last time we've seen Ahsoka fight like this was in her battle against Barriss Offee in the Clone Wars episode To Catch a Jedi, which didn't go well for Ahsoka. Why do that here? Well, I imagine it's a bit like taunting Marrok in action, saying, I don't need flashy tricks or even my second blade to defeat you. You'll slip up and I'll come in for the final blow. This wasn't the wisest decision to make, and she pays for this with a few close calls. As we saw in the previous battle, Marrok is unrelenting, but his reliance on having an overwhelming offense and his flashy spinning lightsaber results in his defeat. Ahsoka doesn't flinch when his blade starts spinning, and she patiently waits for Marrok to launch his attack. The shot is perfect. It bleeds with samurai cinema influence, and we see how Marrok misread Ahsoka's positioning as she holds her lightsaber, seemingly preparing for an obvious vertical offensive strike, leaving herself vulnerable so that she can spot the weak spot in what becomes a very predictable attack by Marrok, who becomes finished with a single slash as mystical black gas shoots from his armor as if it were squibs in a samurai film. This was a mismatch the entire time. We saw this in the prior duel. When it came down to true one-on-one combat without the droid to save him, Marrok simply didn't have a shot. The only question remains, is he done? Yeah, I think so. It looked pretty conclusive, and his defeat appeared to confuse and worry Shin, although it could be possible that this was meant to express shock over the reveal that it was lightsaber magic that was keeping the Inquisitor alive rather than him being a flesh and blood individual. We then get the big moment of the episode as Baylan is forced to take on Ahsoka. Round 1 of what will probably be a spirited relationship between the two. Baylan begins the battle verbally, trying to get under Ahsoka's skin, and this is something he seems to be really good at, manipulating people. He does this to Sabine later in the episode, and you can tell he's truly trying to get to Ahsoka before their sabers are even out. I wonder whether he's had the same sort of effect on Shin. In this battle, Ahsoka again only lights one lightsaber, which is somewhat surprising given how she used 2 to fend off powerful attacks from Marrok, but she could be trying to throw off Baylan, who has made it clear that he is familiar with her and her abilities. This battle features a ton of opponents reading each other, trying to find weaknesses, and ultimately keeping their distance. Every time Ahsoka changes her stance, Baylan reacts accordingly before Ahsoka even has the chance to strike. Ahsoka holds a forward-facing offensive position, which is met by Baylan utilizing a standard stance, offering full body protection from precise strikes. Ahsoka lowers her lightsaber into a stance that would allow for sweeping or flurry attacks, and Baylan prepares for her first strike, which she launches for his head, and when that fails, to sever his legs. What's important to note is that each saber clash is being met with overwhelming force by Baylan. Ahsoka is putting all of her power behind these strikes, and Baylan is seemingly losing nothing on defense. Baylan is patient when it comes to playing out his attacks. We see Vader-level slow and brutal strikes meant to overwhelm and exhaust his opponent. Baylan knows he isn't going to be able to move faster than the swift and nimble Ahsoka, so he needs to defend well, and when he has an opening, use his brute strength to throw her off balance, which is what he does here. Gives Ahsoka a taste of that strength in order to create distance between them again. The fighters switch between stances in an effort to keep their opponents on their toes. This gives Baylan an opening to go for his first powerful set of strikes. When the vertical misses, he goes for a crossbody slash, and from this wide shot, you can see that he puts his entire body into the attack, nearly putting him in harm's way of Ahsoka's mid-air slash. She takes the opportunity to attack again, trying to add gravity to the power of her vertical attack, which Baylan is ready for, parrying and going for an attack on Ahsoka's legs. She dodges and starts her own combo of quick attacks. Both combatants are masterful when it comes to attacking and defending, and this fight really puts them at an interesting standstill despite their vastly different styles. Ahsoka knows when to put her foe into a tough position where they're forced to defend and not get an attack in, while Baylan is utilizing powerful strikes attempting to exhaust Ahsoka. It's difficult to get multiple strikes off when you're using all of your energy just trying to survive even basic attacks. It's tiring, which was why Baylan was able to take Ahsoka off guard completely with this dodge. She never connected with the blade this time, making her utilize all of her momentum from that failed swing into a very strong lunge that could have ended the fight if it wasn't met by Baylan's saber. He uses her exhaustion, putting all of his strength into her saber, creating a sound we've never really heard in a lightsaber clash before, representing his just massive power. It almost sounds like Ahsoka's saber is whimpering from the overwhelming force being applied. This is where Baylan channels a knight from Arthurian legend and unleashes a powerful horizontal strikes, doing something truly unpredictable, using one of Ahsoka's iconic moves against her with that acrobatic flurry of spinning diagonal slashes. Ahsoka is unable to maintain the strength to block these consistent and overwhelming blows and is forced to simply disengage. He gives chase, allowing Ahsoka to launch back with a mid-air vertical strike she knows can't overpower him alone, as time is running out and she's forced to try to get to her objective. From this point on, we get one of my favorite sequences. The tempo of the battle changes as Baylan returns to offense. He relies on some non-lightsaber based attacks. He hurls a boulder at Ahsoka before initiating a massive backhand strike, grabbing her dominant hand and separating her from the map. Ahsoka's focus is no longer on the fight, and that results in Baylan having a full reign to launch an unrelenting combo of attacks. When Ahsoka is back on her feet, he goes for another massively strong attack, where we see her use the braced pillar to help meet his strike. If she would have been on both feet, it probably would have cut through her defenses. However, this compromises her balance, but in a last-ditch effort gives her that strength needed to survive. Ahsoka, however, is able to temporarily knock the larger man down with a series of quick, powerful kicks, but damages her hand grabbing the map. Ahsoka is forced to remain on the defensive thus for the remainder of the battle, blocking and narrowly avoiding incredibly devastating attacks before being interrupted by Shin's presence. Ahsoka is in a state of panic, thinking this means the worst for Sabine, and she uses the last of her strength to throw Shin into a pillar, triggering something in Baylan as he throws one of the most powerful lightsaber slashes we've ever seen in Star Wars. The battle is lost for Ahsoka. She's cornered and facing one of the most powerful foes she's ever battled. Her only hope is to block and hopefully land safely in the water below. And that's the end of the battle. Honestly, probably my favorite battle of the Disney era. I love the way these two combatants have vastly distinct styles, but still have a really interesting flow to the battle. There's a clear objective beyond just each opponent defeating the other opponent, and that allows Ahsoka to secure a temporary win while ultimately losing pretty seriously. Just my thoughts though. Let me know yours down below.